everybody. Jason, thank you and the rest of the Zynga team for putting together another awesome cannabis event, really well attended. A lot of thought leaders here. It's great to see everybody. And for allowing me to conduct this fireside chat with my good friend, colleague, and client, Josh Genderson. So Josh is the CEO of Holistic Industries, which is the largest private multi-state operator. You've heard from most of the public operators. And prior to founding Holistic Industries, the multi-state operator, Josh was the president and owner of Schneider's Liquor Company, which is a liquor company in DC, and it's on Capitol Hill. So from wine to weed. So Josh, so you started off in the liquor business, and you know, people always ask me what are good analogies to the cannabis business, and so obviously liquor comes up pretty quite a bit. What are some of the key factors, the things that you learned from your days operating and being an owner-operator of the wine business that you applied to cannabis and to Holistic?
Sure. Well, just first to echo Mitch's statements, thank you to Zynga and to everybody here for paying attention to our segment. I think Brian quoted somebody else when talking about, you know.
He was quoting Ben Kovler.
All right. Well, so I'll quote Ben Kovler when talking about being, you know, the brewery and the distributor. So I ran a family business for many years, a 70-year-old family business that my great-grandfather started. And when I went into the business, my goal was just not to screw it up. As a fourth generation, just keep it rolling. And I ended up growing it about 6x its size and revenue. And DC, where I live and where we're headquartered, has a unique set of liquor laws. And so essentially in DC, in most states there's 3 tiers. You can import, you can distribute, and then you can sell to the consumer. But in DC, you can cross the tiers. And so one of the ways I was able to grow that business was by including importing and distribution on top of our strong retail platform, and then bring in a digital B2C platform.
So it's a pretty useful skill set I think Brian Schinderly in the last panel was talking about, you're a retailer, you're a producer, so if you were in a different state other than DC in the wine business, you might not have that complement of skills that you are bringing to
Correct.
Cannabis.
Yeah, it's the one, you know, I'll call it a state for pride purposes, that can still be done. And so what I learned manufacturing because we were importers and we had our own labels. I learned distribution, supply chain, marketing, branding, customer service, you know, over-the-top retail, hugs for over-haggling service that I think has been one of the sort of benchmarks that Holistic and our retail brand Liberty live by.
Is there like a example, a lesson, or a story from Grandpa Abe or whomever that sort of informs how you approach Holistic in the cannabis industry?
Well, so Grandpa Abe is 100 years old and living a happy, healthy life right now. I think, you know, running a family business, I don't come from, big finance. I don't come from the banking sector. I took over a business where, you know, you have your revenue and then you have what you spend, and then you have what's left over, right? And you use what's left over to grow the business. And if you need a line of credit from a bank, maybe you get one. But that's what matters, right? Being profitable, essentially being able to operate your company with profit. So I think when I got into this space and got into the MSO space, and as we grew, one thing that I sort of kept to heart was the fact that that's how I know how to run a business. And I can say we're profitable in every state we operate in.
But you've had to, I don't mean to cut you off, but you had to, it's cannabis, so you had to, I mean, you've raised a lot of money. Holistic has raised how much money to date?
I think just under 200 million, I think.
Right.
We just, to cut you off, we closed around, we set out to raise 50 million. And this is, during the downturn in the market, and there was some trepidation, and we cut it off at 55. And so, we've been lucky to have good investors. And we have had to raise money. And again, I think the difference is, 70 years ago when my grandfather opened a business, or my great-grandfather, he borrowed $3,500 from the bank.
Right.
And as we expand, albeit carefully and responsibly, you still need that capital.
All right, I mean, at our firm, when we were advising clients, we always advise them to be good custodians of other people's capital. I think that's something that you're raising that money, but you're putting it to work and are profitable in most of your states.
Yeah.
So I think Kim Rivers may have stole my thunder a little bit on last panel, because I think that I made up this distinction between there's the MSO that everybody talks about, and then there's what we call at our firm the MSA, the multi-state aggregator. And you know, there's a real difference between someone who's just buying licenses and someone is operating a business. I know from working with you and also seeing other MSAs and some MSOs, I'm not making any judgments, come to talk to you about consolidation, et cetera, that the first thing they say is, you know, you're obviously a really good operator. So I guess I'm just trying, like, in your back, is it the wine business that led you to being so hands-on and operational and sort of really like swimming upstream a little bit? Because the downstream swim for a while was to, you know, monopoly, grab everything you can grab, but that's really not what you did, at least as from my observations.
Yeah, I mean, operating was always the plan. And so, you know, we won our first license almost 10 years ago, license number 1 in DC, and then one in Maryland, and then one in Pennsylvania, and then one in Massachusetts, all vertical licenses. And, you know, we were able to, I've always had this ethos of, you know, I want to be the best place to work, shop, and invest. And I think about it in that order. You know, again, you asked me what I learned from my family business. You know, you learn community and you learn being good to your people. And so by being the best place to work, I think, you know, that means listening and letting every employee know they have a voice and an opinion. And I think it means, you know, letting them have room to go outside of their lane a little bit. And we've found that it's built this passionate, you know, just intense group of employees who have in turn, you know, spent their time making the best products they could make and creating the best retail experience they could create. So we became the best place to shop. And I think, you know, that brings in revenue and, like I said, and profits. And you know, in turn makes us what I'd like to think is the best place to invest.
You know, it's funny, it seems like a no-brainer to focus on all of these other cohorts. But it was only this August, it was a Business Roundtable that's you know, led by 180 of the leading businesses in the country, set out to redefine the purpose of a corporation. Like sort of theretofore, it was axiomatic. I'm a lawyer, so I use words like theretofore and axiomatic. But so it was that you know, shareholders, companies exist to maximize profit for shareholders. But this Business Roundtable got together and said, you know, that's really not the purpose of a corporation, right? You have to consider all your stakeholders, your employees, your community, your suppliers, right? Your vendors and your customers. It seems like you were, I mean, this has been 30 years, you know, or 40 years in the making of this idea that corporations exist for the maximized profits, but you've never really bought into that.
Well, yeah, I didn't come from the corporate side of life. You know, I had a successful venture in New York, and then I moved and took over a family business. And, you know, you brought up my grandpa Abe. I think Grandpa Abe knew, you know, he understood what the corporate roundtable just figured out. And that is how important your stakeholders are, your shareholders are, and you know, your relationships are. And I think being, you know, one of the reasons we've been so successful at winning merit-based licenses is because the dedication to community. And I think, you know, no matter where you're going, cannabis is a little bit scary to politicians. It's a little bit scary to sheriffs and to the police community. And, you know, so our head of security is the chief of the Maryland Fraternal Order of Police and sits on the chair of the U.S. Fraternal Order of Police. So our security is done by local police, local to that particular state or town or municipality. And, you know, I think knowing that for the community to know that we care about them and are invested in their success. has gone a long way.
So you just said that you win your licenses on merit. What do you mean by that? And have you is the entire holistic footprint, like, is it a merit-based?
So no, you know, our original trajectory was based upon winning licenses, and so we had a really good streak where we would win, and we found ourselves again as a private company and not having to worry so much about quarterly revenue and quarterly reporting. We could really take a step back and be strategic. And being able to do that and having a great investor base that trusts us and you know, like I said, we just closed this new round and we have, you know, great support from our previous investors and from new family offices and some cannabis funds. I know Bengal Capital's here today and Entourage Effect. And so I think we're also able to look for distressed assets, you know, timely fashion. And so we've made M&A, you know, acquisitions in California, in Michigan, in Maryland. We've never spent more than $7 million on an M&A.
Distressed assets.
Yeah, they're distressed, so we have time to do that.
So you just mentioned you recently completed a $55 million raise, which obviously in this environment, challenging. But did you find it challenging?
You know, it was. Thank God, it was easier than I thought it would be, and you know, it's certainly challenging. But I think our platform and our results, you know, and the results-oriented company that we are, proved to be effective, and we were able to raise it. Not only raise it, I mean, we set out to raise 50, we cut it off at 55. And again, this is during, you know, all the, you know, this horrible news from the public markets. So you know, I think I think it was a fun challenge. I think we have an amazing team. Our CFO Barry Bass is in the crowd. He's many years a public markets CFO. Kyle Barish, who's doing a presentation tomorrow, who just came on as our chief marketing officer, was the CEO of a public subsidiary for many years. And so, you know, with people like that around us, including yourself, you know, I think we were able to do it quickly and efficiently.
During that process, did you look at going public? I mean, so many of the companies, whether they want to or don't, you know, might feel that they have to go down that road because there are investors who want that promise of liquidity, right? So that's part of the quid pro quo of taking their money. Did you find that your investors wanted it, and what were your views? Because you're private, so you didn't go public. That has obviously been available to you. So, like, why not? And are your investors happy that you didn't, or are you getting a lot of pressure to still go public to give them liquidity?
So first and foremost, I think, you know, once every 2 or 3 hours we talk about going public, or we have the conversation. The answer is no. I don't think anybody's upset that we didn't, certainly now. And we haven't had to. And, you know, again, if and when the time comes when going public's the right thing to do, I think we'll dive in head first. But I think that there's a lot that's been afforded to us by being a private company. You know, there's a little bit less stress in my life. We're able to take a step back, like I said, and strategically really think about, you know, 6, 8, 12 months down the line, you know, where we're going to be. And I think that's the best way to get profitable and the best way to get market share. Otherwise, you're just reactive, and you know, it's a different ballgame.
Right. When you started the bit, you said 2011, right? 2011.
Yeah.
When you started, so 2011, John Boehner is the Speaker of the House. He's an opponent to legalize marijuana, and your business is in D.C. And now he's the chairman, or he's a board member of Acreage, which is essentially through an option owned by Constellation Brands, which I'm sure is a company that's well known to you from the alcohol space. Are you seeing, like, through your business and through your alcohol connections, big alcohol lining up to partner with or buy big cannabis?
Yeah, I think not just big alcohol. I think tobacco companies, CPG companies. The John Boehner comment's relevant, right? For me, I live on Capitol Hill. My grandparents were born on Capitol Hill. My office, I could throw a stone to the Senate. The federal, opinion, right? The federal legislators' opinion of cannabis is changing. And no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you can feel the toothpaste coming out of the tube. If you would have said one of your questions, were 3 years ago, what kept you up at night? It was Jeff Sessions could become Attorney General.
Right.
That didn't happen. It happened, but I mean, the fear didn't come true. And so I think that as the political climate changes, and I think a lot of operators know it will. I think we're also not in a huge rush for it to happen. But as it does, I think you'll start to really see these, particularly from my experience, the alcohol brands, but tobacco, CPG companies, private equity start to close in, and I think they're going to be looking for operators like us that have retail outlets in LA and San Francisco and Detroit and Ann Arbor and DC and Pittsburgh and Philly and
right.
Spread across the country in strategic areas and locations. And
right. All right, I see that we're over time, which is shocking. This feels like we have this same conversation pretty much every night, so we can put our phones in our hands and act like we're just having a conversation. But so I'll let you pick between. I had two questions I really wanted to ask you to close, which is, what do you see as the biggest challenge? I mean, it's been a big fun challenge up till now, but so going forward, what's the biggest challenge? What's next for Holistic? The next 3 to 5 years?
Sure. In an industry with a lot of challenges, I think the biggest challenge for me, and I think we've overcome this, fiercely overcome it, is finding the right people, building a bench of brilliant businessmen and women with breadth and depth of experience throughout many spaces. And you can't be everywhere at once, and it took me a while to learn that. But as we've built this incredible team that has incredible cohesion and is helping sort of bring my culture and the culture I've set out to do to light, that was a challenge, and I'm happy to say we've overcome it. We're overcoming it. 2 to 3 years, I think we're going to continue to do what we do. We continue to have a great investor base. We're going to continue to win licenses. We're going to continue to find distressed assets. We have a nice balance sheet. We have cash on the balance sheet, and so I don't have a particular day or time for you, but I can tell you we're here to stay, and I think we've gone from the biggest company that no one in this room has ever heard of, and we're going to become the best company that you've all heard of, and that's really my goal.
I wouldn't bet against it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you. Good talk.